No one dared challenge her. She ruled with cold cruelty, protected by the city's most dangerous man. But one quiet waitress refused to bow, igniting a dangerous game of pride, power, and hidden betrayals. In a world where fear meant survival, one moment of courage would change everything. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The crystal chandeliers of the gilded anchor cast dancing shadows across white tablecloths as Elena moved between tables with practiced efficiency. Her black uniform was pressed, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, and her smile was polite but distant. She had learned to be invisible in places like this. 3 months ago, Elena had been someone different. She had worn blazers and analyzed data patterns for a tech company downtown. She had an apartment with a view and plans for the future. Then the layoffs came, then the eviction notice, then the desperate scramble for any job that would pay rent. Now she carried plates and poured wine and pretended not to notice when wealthy diners snapped their fingers at her. "Table 7 needs attention," her manager Daniel whispered as he passed. His face was pale, his hands shaking slightly. "Be careful, very careful." Elena glanced toward the corner booth. A woman sat there, elegant and cold as winter. Her dress was designer, her jewelry caught the light with every small movement, and her eyes scanned the room like a predator surveying territory. This was Isabella Cortez. Everyone in the city knew that name, not because Isabella herself was powerful, but because of who she belonged to. Julian Cross, the man who controlled the docks, the shipping lanes, the underground networks that made this coastal city run. The man whose name people whispered but never said too loudly. Elena picked up the wine bottle Daniel had indicated. Chateau Margaux 1995. She had memorized the wine list her first week. The vintage was rare, expensive, and exactly what Table 7 had ordered. She approached the booth with steady steps. "Your wine, Miss Cortez." Elena's voice was professional, neutral. Isabella didn't look up immediately. She was examining her nails, each one perfectly manicured in deep red. When she finally raised her eyes, they were empty of warmth. "Open it." Elena uncorked the bottle smoothly, letting Isabella inspect the label. She poured a small amount into the crystal glass, then stepped back and waited. Isabella lifted the glass, swirled it, sniffed, and took a sip. Then she set it down with deliberate slowness. "This is wrong." The words cut through the ambient noise of the restaurant. Nearby conversations faltered. Elena felt eyes turning toward them. "I'm sorry, Miss Cortez. This is the Chateau Margaux 1995 you ordered." "I know what I ordered." Isabella's voice was sharp now, rising just enough to carry. "This is not it. Take it back." Elena's heart began to pound, but her face remained calm. She had checked the bottle 3 times. The label was clear. The year was correct. This was exactly what had been ordered. "Miss Cortez, I can assure you this is the correct vintage. If you'd like, I can bring the manager to confirm the order." "Are you calling me a liar?" The restaurant went completely silent. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died. Even the kitchen sounds seemed to fade. Daniel appeared at the edge of Elena's vision, his face white with terror, making small gestures for her to apologize, to back down, to do whatever it took to end this. But Elena had spent too many years analyzing patterns, reading data, seeing through manipulations in numbers and now in people. She knew what was happening. Isabella hadn't made a mistake. This was a game, a test, a way to prove her power by making someone break. "No, Miss Cortez, I'm stating a fact. This is the wine you ordered." The words fell like stones into still water. Isabella's face transformed. The cold elegance cracked, revealing something uglier beneath. She stood abruptly, and with one swift movement, she swept her wine glass off the table. It shattered against the floor near Elena's feet, red wine splashing across the white tiles like blood. Elena didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even look down at the broken glass. She simply stood there, meeting Isabella's furious gaze with quiet steadiness. "You stupid, ignorant little waitress." Isabella's voice was venomous now. "Do you have any idea who I am? Do you understand what I could do to you, to this pathetic restaurant? I could have this place shut down before sunrise. I could make sure you never work anywhere in this city again. I could. That's enough, Isabello. The voice came from behind Elena. It was quiet, but it carried absolute authority. The kind of voice that didn't need to be loud because everyone would listen anyway. Elena turned slightly and saw him for the first time. Julian Cross was not what she expected. The stories painted him as a monster, a shadow, something barely human, but the man walking toward them was simply a man, tall, dark-haired, dressed in an expensive suit that fit perfectly. His face was handsome but hard, carved from stone and experience. His eyes were gray and calculating. He had been sitting at the bar, she realized, watching, waiting. Julian, Isabella's anger shifted instantly to something else. Surprise, then poorly concealed fear. I was just handling a situation. This waitress tried to serve me the wrong wine and then argued with me about it. Julian walked past Elena without looking at her. He picked up the wine bottle from the table, examined the label, then looked at Isabella with an expression that revealed nothing. This is exactly what you ordered. Chateau Margaux 1995. I heard you order it myself when we arrived. I must have misspoken then. I meant to order the 1990. We both know that's not true. Julian's voice remained quiet, but there was steel underneath. Apologize to the waitress. Isabella's face flushed. You can't be serious. Apologize now. For a moment, Elena thought Isabella might refuse. The woman's hands were clenched into fists, her jaw tight with barely controlled rage. But then she turned to Elena and through gritted teeth said, I apologize for the confusion. It wasn't sincere. Everyone in the restaurant knew it, but it was an apology from Isabella Cortez, which no one had ever witnessed before. Julian turned to Elena for the first time. His gray eyes studied her with unsettling intensity, as if he could see past her uniform and polite mask to everything underneath. What's your name? Elena, sir. You handled that well, Elena. He pulled out his wallet, extracted several $100 bills and placed them on the table, for the wine and the trouble. Then he looked at Isabella. We're leaving. Isabella grabbed her purse and followed him without another word, though her eyes promised vengeance as she passed Elena. The restaurant remained silent for another moment, then slowly, conversations resumed. The tension broke like a released breath. Daniel appeared at Elena's side, his face no longer pale but red with anger. My office, now. Elena had known this was coming. She followed him through the kitchen, past curious stares from the cooking staff, into the cramped manager's office that smelled like old coffee and stress. Daniel slammed the door. What were you thinking? I was doing my job. Your job is to keep the customers happy. Your job is to apologize when Isabella Cortez says the wine is wrong, even if you know it isn't. Your job is to not argue with the fiancée of the most dangerous man in this city. She was trying to humiliate me. So what? Daniel's voice cracked. So what, Elena? You swallow your pride, you apologize, you bring her whatever she wants, and you move on. That's how this works. That's how you survive. By letting people treat you like garbage. Yes, if those people can destroy you with a phone call, then yes. Daniel ran his hands through his thinning hair. I'm sorry, Elena. I really am. You're a good waitress, but I can't have you here anymore. If Isabella tells Julian what happened, if she decides to retaliate, this restaurant could be finished. I have to think about everyone else who works here. Elena felt something hollow open in her chest. You're firing me. I'm protecting my business. I'll give you 2 weeks' pay and a reference that doesn't mention tonight. That's the best I can do. She wanted to argue, to point out that Julian himself had sided with her, had forced Isabella to apologize. But she could see in Daniel's frightened eyes that it didn't matter. Fear had made the decision, and fear couldn't be reasoned with. Fine, Elena untied her apron and set it on the desk. I'll collect my things. She walked out of the office, through the kitchen, past the lockers where she kept her jacket and phone. The other staff members avoided her eyes. They were relieved, she realized. Relieved that she was the sacrifice and not them. The night air was cold when she stepped outside into the alley behind the restaurant. The sounds of the ocean were distant but constant, waves rolling against the docks a few blocks away. Elena leaned against the brick wall and let herself feel it. The exhaustion, the frustration, the fear of what came next. She had $300 in her bank account. Rent was due in 2 weeks. She had no job and now no reference that would help her get another one. The careful balance she had been maintaining since losing everything was collapsing, and she didn't know how to stop it. Elena! She spun around. Julian Cross stood at the entrance to the alley, alone. His hands were in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Cross, I'm sorry about the situation inside. I didn't mean to cause problems." "You didn't cause problems, Isabella did." He walked closer. "She does that, tests people, looks for weakness. Usually she finds it." "Well, congratulations to her. She got me fired." "That manager's a coward." Julian studied her in the dim light from the street lamp. "You said exactly what you should have said. You knew you were right, and you didn't back down. That's rare. It's also apparently unemployable." A hint of something that might have been amusement touched his face. "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. Elena hesitated, every warning bell in her mind screaming that following Julian Cross anywhere was dangerous. But she also had nothing left to lose, and curiosity was a powerful thing. They walked down the alley and onto the street, heading toward the waterfront. The city at night was beautiful and dangerous, bright lights reflecting off dark water. Julian didn't speak for several blocks, just walked with the easy confidence of someone who owned everything around him. "I know about you," he finally said. "Elena Morrison, data analyst at TechCore Solutions until the layoffs last quarter. Graduate degree in information systems. Brilliant analytical mind, according to your former supervisors. Currently living in a studio apartment in the warehouse district and working as a waitress to make rent." Elena's stomach dropped. "You investigated me." "I investigate everyone interesting. You caught my attention tonight, not just because you stood up to Isabella, though that was impressive, but because of how you did it. Calm, logical. You assessed the situation and chose your response carefully." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "I could use someone like that." "For what?" "I run businesses, Elena, shipping companies, logistics operations, warehouses, transport networks, all legitimate, all requiring coordination, analysis, and strategic planning. My current team is loyal but not particularly skilled with data or systems optimization. You, on the other hand, have exactly those skills." Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're offering me a job? You, Julian Cross, crime lord of the Eastern Seaboard, want to hire me to do data analysis?" "Crime lord," he said the words like they tasted bad. "Is that what they call me?" "Among other things." "I'm a businessman. Some of my business is legal, some isn't, but the operations I'm offering you would be entirely legitimate. Shipping manifests, inventory systems, route optimization, supply chain management. Nothing that would compromise your morals or put you at legal risk." "And I'm supposed to believe that, supposed to trust you?" Julian's gray eyes were steady. "No, you're supposed to recognize an opportunity when you see one. You're broke, unemployed, and running out of options. I'm offering you a position that pays well and uses your actual skills instead of wasting them carrying plates. You don't have to trust me. You just have to be smart enough to see that this is better than your alternatives." He was right, and Elena hated that he was right. She thought about her empty apartment, her dwindling bank account, the applications she had sent to dozens of companies with no responses. She thought about the look in Daniel's eyes when he fired her. "What exactly would this job entail?" "You would work from my office downtown. Standard business hours. You'd analyze my shipping operations, identify inefficiencies, suggest improvements, and help implement new systems. You'd report directly to me. Salary is $200,000 a year to start, with performance bonuses." Elena actually stumbled. $200,000. plus health insurance and a signing bonus to help you find better housing. Julian pulled a business card from his pocket and held it out. Think about it. Come to this address tomorrow at 10 if you're interested. She took the card with numb fingers. The address was in the financial district, one of the gleaming towers that overlooked the harbor. Why me? She asked. You could hire anyone. Someone already in your organization who knows how things work. I don't want someone who knows how things work. I want someone smart enough to see how things should work. Someone who isn't afraid to tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. He started walking away, then paused. Besides, you already proved tonight that you don't scare easily. That's valuable. He disappeared around the corner, leaving Elena standing alone on the waterfront with a business card and a decision that would change everything. She looked down at the card, simple black text on white stock, an address, a time, no name, no title, nothing to indicate who had given it to her or what she would be walking into. Elena thought about Isabella's rage-filled eyes, about Julian's calculated assessment, about the fact that everything she had learned about him suggested this was a terrible idea. Then she thought about her rent, her empty refrigerator, the rejection emails filling her inbox. She put the card in her pocket and started walking home. Current word count, 2,547. The studio apartment was cold when she climbed the 3 flights of stairs and unlocked the door. Paint peeled from the walls. The radiator clanked but produced little heat. Her furniture consisted of a futon, a small table, and 2 folding chairs she had found on the street. Elena sat down and pulled out her laptop. Despite everything, despite the exhaustion and stress, her analyst's mind was already working. She opened her browser and started searching. Julian Cross. The search results were extensive but vague. Business owner, philanthropist, shipping magnate, the legitimate face of operations that everyone suspected ran much deeper. There were photos of him at charity galas, ribbon cuttings, city council meetings. He looked the same in all of them, composed, controlled, dangerous. She found articles about his engagement to Isabella Cortez, society pages gushing about the wedding plans, photos of them together at various events, Isabella's hand on his arm, her smile perfect and empty. Elena thought about the way Julian had looked at Isabella in the restaurant. There had been no warmth there, no affection, just cold assessment. She searched for information about his businesses, Cross Logistics, Cross Shipping International, Harbor Freight Solutions, all legitimate on paper, all profitable, all connected to the infrastructure that kept the city's port running. The port where rumor said drugs moved in shipping containers, where money was laundered through legitimate cargo, where Julian's real power was rooted. Elena closed her laptop. Her hands were shaking slightly. This was insane. Taking a job from a man like Julian Cross was insane. Getting involved in his world in any way was asking for trouble. But the rational part of her brain, the analyst part, was already calculating odds and outcomes. She needed money, she needed work, she needed something that would use her skills and get her life back on track. This job offered all of that. And if she was being honest with herself, something else pulled at her too. Curiosity, the puzzle of it. What exactly was Julian building? What did he really want? Why had he noticed her in a restaurant full of people? Elena lay down on her futon and stared at the cracked ceiling. Tomorrow at 10, the address on the card. She would go, she knew she would go. Because Julian had been right about one thing, she didn't have better alternatives. And because somewhere, under the fear and the uncertainty, she wanted to know what would happen next. The morning came too fast. Elena woke with her heart already racing, the business card sitting on her table like a dare. She showered in the tiny bathroom where the hot water lasted exactly 4 minutes, then stood in front of her closet trying to decide what someone wears to interview with a crime lord. She settled on black pants and a grey blouse, professional but not trying too hard, her only pair of decent shoes, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw someone trying very hard to appear confident. The address led her to a glass tower in the financial district. Cross Logistics occupied floors 12 through 15. Elena stood on the sidewalk looking up, watching sunlight glint off windows that reflected nothing but sky. She checked her phone, 9:55. The lobby was marble and chrome. A security desk stood between her and the elevators. The guard looked up as she approached, his expression professionally neutral. "Elena Morrison, I have a 10 o'clock appointment." He checked his computer, made a phone call, then handed her a visitor badge. "14th floor, someone will meet you at the elevator." The elevator was fast and silent. Elena watched the numbers climb and tried to calm her breathing. This was just a job interview, just a conversation. She could walk away anytime. The doors opened on 14, and a woman was waiting. She was older, maybe 50, with silver hair cut short and sharp eyes behind designer glasses. "Miss Morrison, I'm Patricia Chen, Mr. Cross's executive assistant. Follow me, please." They walked through an open office space. Dozens of people worked at computers, talked on phones, studied documents. It looked like any corporate office. Normal, boring, even. Elena didn't know what she expected, but it wasn't this. Patricia led her past the main floor to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. The door was open. Julian sat behind a massive desk, reading something on his computer. He was dressed differently than last night, more casual, dark shirt with the sleeves rolled up, no tie. He looked up as they entered. "Thank you, Patricia, hold my calls." Patricia nodded and left, closing the door behind her. Julian gestured to a chair across from his desk. "You came. You didn't think I would. I thought you might let fear win." He closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. "I'm glad you didn't." Elena sat down, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "Before we go any further, I need to ask you something directly. What you said last night about legitimate business, was that true? Because I need this job, but I'm not willing to do anything illegal. I won't help move drugs or launder money or whatever else people say you do." Julian leaned back in his chair. For a long moment, he just studied her. Then he smiled, and it was genuine. "You came here ready to refuse me. That takes courage. That takes desperation and a refusal to compromise on some things. So answer the question." "Yes, it was true. The work I'm offering you is completely legal. Shipping manifests, route optimization, inventory management. You'll have access to everything. You can verify it yourself." He pulled a folder from his desk drawer and slid it across to her. "This is a contract, standard employment agreement. Read it. Have a lawyer review it if you want. Nothing in it obligates you to do anything illegal." Elena opened the folder and started reading. The language was clear and professional. Salary as promised, benefits, standard confidentiality agreements, termination clauses that worked both ways. "Why separate the legitimate from the illegitimate?" she asked, still reading. "Why not just hire someone who's already part of your organization?" "Because the legitimate businesses are profitable on their own, they don't need to be connected to anything else. And because I'm building towards something, a transition, an exit from the parts of my life I'd rather leave behind." He paused. "That probably sounds like manipulation, like I'm telling you what you want to hear." "It does, yes. But you're still reading the contract." Elena looked up at him. "I'm still reading the contract because even if you're lying about your motives, the work itself is still real. These businesses exist. They need managing, and I'm very good at managing complex systems." "Yes, you are. I've seen your work from TechCore. The supply chain optimization project you led saved them $2 million in the first quarter." "You really did investigate me." "I told you I investigate everyone interesting." Julian stood and walked to the windows, looking out at the harbor. "I'm going to be honest with you about something, Elena. Isabella is not going to be happy about this. She already sees you as someone who embarrassed her. Having you work here will make that worse." "Should I be worried?" "Yes, but I'll make it clear that you're under my protection. She won't touch you directly." "That's comforting," Elena said, not feeling comforted at all. Julian turned back to her. "You have a choice. Take this job, make more money than you've ever made, use your skills properly and deal with Isabella's resentment. Or walk away and keep struggling. I won't judge you either way. Elena looked down at the contract again. $200,000, health insurance, a signing bonus of $20,000. It was more than a lifeline. It was a complete reset of her life. She thought about Isabella's cold eyes, about the shattered wine glass, about the promises of violence in that look. Then she thought about her empty apartment and her empty bank account, and the fact that she had eaten ramen for dinner 5 nights in a row. "I'll need a pen," she said. Julian smiled and handed her one from his desk. Elena signed the contract. She started that same day. Patricia showed her to her office, smaller than Julian's, but still impressive. Windows overlooking the city, a new computer already set up with her login credentials, stacks of files waiting for her review. "Mr. Cross wants you to start with the harbor freight operations," Patricia explained. "They've been underperforming for 6 months. He thinks there are inefficiencies in the routing system. I'll need access to the full database, shipping records, fuel costs, maintenance schedules, personnel files. Everything's already loaded on your computer. If you need anything else, call me." Patricia set a company phone on the desk. "Your direct line," and Elena. "Yes. Welcome aboard. It's good to have someone competent for a change." She smiled and left. Elena sat down in her new office chair and pulled up the files. Within minutes, she was absorbed. The data was messy but comprehensive. She could already see patterns, inefficiencies, places where the system was bleeding money. This was what she was good at. This was where she belonged. Not carrying plates or forcing smiles. Here, with numbers and systems and problems that had solutions. Hours passed without her noticing. She built spreadsheets, ran analyses, created models. The harbor freight system was worse than she thought. Routes were duplicated. Fuel consumption was 30% higher than industry standard. Maintenance was reactive instead of preventative. But it was fixable. All of it was fixable. Someone knocked on her door. Elena looked up, surprised to see the sky outside had darkened. Her clock read 6:30. "Come in." Julian entered, carrying 2 paper bags that smelled like Chinese food. "Patricia said you haven't moved in 7 hours. Thought you might be hungry." Elena realized she was starving. "Thank you." He set the food on her desk and pulled up a chair. "Find anything interesting?" "Harbor freight is a disaster. Whoever set up your routing system didn't account for tidal patterns or seasonal traffic. You're sending heavy loads through congested areas during peak hours and empty trucks through open routes at optimal times. It's completely backward." "Can you fix it?" "I can fix it in 2 weeks if you give me authority to reassign routes and update the software." Julian opened one of the containers and handed her chopsticks. "You have that authority. What else?" "Your maintenance budget is being wasted on emergency repairs. If you shift to preventative maintenance, you'll cut those costs in half and reduce downtime by 70%. Do it." Elena ate some lo mein, then pulled up another spreadsheet. "Also, I think someone's stealing from you. The fuel consumption numbers don't match the route distances. Either your trucks are incredibly inefficient or someone's siphoning fuel and covering it with false reports." Julian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Can you prove it?" "Give me access to the fuel card records and GPS data from the trucks. I'll have proof in 3 days." "Patricia will get you access tomorrow." He ate in silence for a moment. "You're good at this." "I told you I was." "People say a lot of things. You actually deliver." They finished eating and talked about the other systems she would tackle next. Julian listened carefully, asked good questions, understood the problems quickly. Elena found herself forgetting who she was talking to, forgetting the rumors and the danger. This was just work, just 2 people solving business problems. Then his phone rang. Julian looked at the screen and his whole demeanor changed, closed off, colder. "I have to take this," He stood and walked to the window. Yes. Elena pretended to focus on her computer, but she could hear his side of the conversation. I told you I'm working late. No, I don't know when I'll be home. Isabella, I don't have time for this right now. A pause. That's not my concern. Figure it out yourself. He hung up without saying goodbye. Sorry about that, he said, turning back to Elena, but his voice was tired now. It's fine. I should head home anyway. I'll have Marcus drive you. He's my head of security. Safer than taking the subway this late. I can manage the subway. I'm sure you can, but Marcus will drive you anyway. Julian pulled out his phone and sent a text. He'll meet you downstairs in 5 minutes. Elena wanted to argue, but recognized it would be pointless. She gathered her things and took the elevator down. The lobby was empty, except for the night's security guard and a man who stood by the entrance. Marcus was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a face that revealed nothing. He looked like exactly what he was, someone hired to hurt people when necessary. Miss Morrison, he said, his voice was deep and flat, this way. The car was a black sedan with tinted windows. Marcus drove in complete silence, navigating through evening traffic with practiced efficiency. Elena gave him her address and watched the city pass outside her window. You're the new analyst, Marcus finally said. Yes. How's that going? Fine so far. Good, we need someone competent in that position. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Word of advice, stay out of Julian's personal business, focus on the work. It's safer that way. Noted. They pulled up outside her building. Marcus got out and opened her door, scanning the street with professional paranoia before letting her exit. See you tomorrow, Miss Morrison. Elena climbed the stairs to her apartment, unlocked the door, and collapsed on her futon. Her mind was racing with data patterns and route optimizations, and the realization that her entire life had changed in 24 hours. She pulled out her new phone and saw several missed calls from her mother. Elena called back. Finally, her mother answered, I've been trying to reach you all day. How was the job search going? I got a job, Mom. Good salary, using my degree. Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. What company? Elena hesitated. Cross Logistics. They do shipping and freight management. Cross Logistics. Isn't that owned by that man from the news, the one they say is connected to organized crime? He's a businessman, Mom, and I'm working on completely legitimate operations. Elena, I don't like this. It sounds dangerous. It's fine, really. I'm just doing data analysis in an office. Same thing I did before. Her mother sighed. Just be careful. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. They talked for a few more minutes before Elena made an excuse to hang up. She knew her mother was right to be worried. Elena was worried too, but she was also employed and could pay her rent, and that was enough for now. She fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the long day. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of work. Elena arrived early and left late. She tore through Julian's systems, finding inefficiencies everywhere. She restructured routes, implemented new software, caught the fuel thieves with undeniable evidence, and saved the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. Julian gave her more access, more authority, more responsibility. She started attending meetings with department heads who looked at her with suspicion at first, but respect after she proved her competence. Patricia became her ally, helping navigate office politics and warning her about who to trust. The other analysts warmed to her when they realized she wasn't there to take their jobs, just to make everyone's work easier. Elena moved to a better apartment, one with heat that worked and windows that closed properly. She bought real furniture. She paid off her credit card debt. For the first time in months, she could breathe. But she also noticed things that worried her. Isabella came to the office twice. Both times she ignored Elena completely, but her presence was like cold air spreading through the building. People tensed when she was around. Conversations stopped. And Elena noticed Marcus watching her, not threateningly, but constantly. He was always somewhere nearby when she left the building, always driving Julian's car, always present at meetings where security wasn't needed. On a Friday evening, 4 weeks after Elena started, she was working late again when Isabella walked into her office without knocking. Elena looked up from her computer. "Miss Cortez, can I help you?" Isabella closed the door behind her and stood there, examining Elena like she was something distasteful. She was dressed in designer clothes, her makeup perfect, her expression carved from ice. "You think you're clever, don't you?" "I think I'm good at my job." "Your job," Isabella laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're a waitress playing in a world you don't understand, a temporary amusement. If you have concerns about my work performance, you should speak with Julian." "Oh, I've spoken with Julian many times about you." Isabella walked closer, her heels clicking on the floor. "He thinks you're brilliant, indispensable. He spends more time talking about shipping routes and optimization than he does planning our wedding." "That sounds like a conversation you should have with your fiancée." "I'm having it with you instead, because you need to understand something, Elena. Amusements fade. Julian gets bored, he always does. And when he's done playing with his new toy, you'll be discarded like all the others." Elena stood up, meeting Isabella's eyes. "Is there anything else? Because I have work to finish." Isabella's expression hardened. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. This world, Julian's world, it doesn't operate by rules you understand. You think you're safe because he's interested in you right now. But interest changes, protection ends." "Was that a threat?" "It was advice from someone who actually belongs here." Isabella turned and walked to the door, then paused. "One more thing, stay away from Marcus. I notice you watching him sometimes. Whatever you think you see, you're wrong." She left before Elena could respond. Elena sat back down slowly. Her hands were shaking slightly. She pulled up her computer and opened a new file, one she had been building quietly for the past week. Because Isabella was right about one thing, Elena had been watching Marcus, and she had seen something, small patterns in the security logs that didn't match his official duties, private meetings with Isabella that weren't on any calendar, financial transfers through systems that Elena had access to but wasn't supposed to notice. She was building a case, though she didn't know yet what the case would prove, just that something was wrong, something beneath the surface that her analyst's mind couldn't ignore. Elena worked for another 2 hours, then gathered her things and headed downstairs. Marcus was waiting by the car as usual. They drove in silence until they were halfway to her apartment. Then Marcus spoke. "Isabella talked to you today." It wasn't a question. Elena wondered how he knew. "Yes." "What did she say?" "That I should stay in my lane, more or less." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Good advice." "Is it?" "You're smart, Elena, smart enough to know when you're in over your head." He pulled up outside her building. "Have a good weekend." Elena got out and watched him drive away. Then she went upstairs, made tea, and sat down with her laptop. She pulled up the file on Marcus and Isabella. The patterns were becoming clearer, money moving through accounts in small amounts that would escape casual notice. Security logs showing Marcus in places he shouldn't be at times that didn't match his schedule. Communication records between him and Isabella that went through encrypted channels. They were working together, that much was certain, but toward what purpose, Elena didn't know yet. She needed more data, more evidence, more time. And she needed to be very, very careful, because if Isabella and Marcus were hiding something, discovering it would be dangerous. And if she was wrong, making accusations would be equally dangerous. Elena closed her laptop and looked out her window at the city lights. She thought about her mother's warning, about Marcus's advice, about Isabella's threat. She should walk away, should focus on her job and nothing else, should accept her salary and her new life and ignore the patterns she was seeing. But Elena had never been good at ignoring patterns. It was what made her brilliant at data analysis, and it might be what got her killed. Thanks for watching. Would you have taken Julian's offer or walked away from the danger? Drop your answer and your location in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more thrilling tales of courage, betrayal, and redemption. Your next favorite story is just one click away.